Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the CERIAS Security Seminar Series in fall 2022. My name is Dongyan Chiu. I am the director of CERIAS here at Purdue University. It's my great pleasure to open the fall seminar series and my honor to introduce our first speaker, Professor Kevin Carnegie from Morgan State University. Professor Carnegie received his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Pratt Institute in New York in 1985, and his master and PhD degrees in electrical engineering from the University of California at Berkeley in 1990 and 1992, respectively. He's currently the Eugene Deloach Endowed Professor in Cybersecurity and Director of the Cybersecurity Assurance and Policy Center at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. Kevin's research interests include hardware and software assurance, reverse engineering, secure embedded systems, side channel analysis, and fault injection. He serves on or has served on the technical program committees of several international conferences, including the IEEE Symposium on Hardware-Oriented Security and Trust, Usenix Security Symposium, and the IEEE Physical Assurance and Inspection of Electronics, and the ACN Great Lakes Symposium on VLSI. Kevin is the recipient of multiple awards, including the NSF Career Award, IBM Faculty Partnership Award, National Semiconductor Faculty Development Award, and the General Motors Faculty Fellowship Award. Now, without further ado, Professor Kevin Carnegie.
Thank you, Dongyan, for that great introduction. And good afternoon for those of you out in the audience. So today I'm going to take you on a little journey regarding the Cybersecurity Assurance and Policy Center. So, okay, there we go. So I'll give you an overview from a historical perspective, and then I'll do a cursory dive into the type of research where I'll highlight at least two specific projects to give you some perspective on the breadth of the type of research that we do. I'll talk a little bit about our academic programs and conclude with some ideas about how we do workforce development. So our journey began in 2014 with an NSF RISE grant. So when I arrived at Morgan, they didn't give out starter packages or anything. So before I could get graduate students and build research infrastructure, I needed money. So I wrote an NSF RISE grant, which is a research instrumentation in science and engineering grant. So it's really for to build up capacity, help you build up capacity and infrastructure. Synonymous with that, I founded the CREAM Lab, which is the first lab that's just now been subsumed by the CAP Center, but the CREAM Lab, CREAM stands for the Center for Reverse Engineering and Assured Microelectronics. Then we started to branch out and develop partnerships, particularly with the folks in the intelligence community. So we had a pilot program at the National Security Agency in 2016. And what followed after that also, well, actually that same year, we became an NSA Center for Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense Education. We launched, subsequent to that, we launched a Master of Engineering and Cyber Engineering program in 2017, which is a Navy civilian program where they send a cohort here for a year and they get, the program is a information assurance focused curriculum. And then in 2018, with funds from the state of Maryland, we became the Cybersecurity Assurance and Policy Center. And we've grown from a 2,000 square foot laboratory to 2 floors in a building. So, as I mentioned, we're a CAE. We were just redesignated in this actually earlier this year, and we plan to become a CAER, submit our designation in this fall. Our mission is effectively to provide the intelligence community with knowledge, methodology, solutions, and highly skilled cybersecurity workforce to help prevent the penetration and manipulation of our nation's cyber physical infrastructure. So because we live in a society where everything's connected to everything, and we have these at the, from the edge to the cloud, you have a variety of smart devices in our homes, hospitals, et cetera. But at the very heart of these devices are embedded systems. So effectively, the everything today, if you think about a Tesla, it's just a collection of electronic control units, which are embedded systems. A Tesla may have over 300 of these devices, and it's just a mobile IoT platform. And so we use invasive and non-invasive, mostly non-invasive techniques, both on the hardware side and software side, to assess the assurance of these embedded systems. And so our research, you'll see in the following slides how we integrate that into our instruction as well as our research, and how that tightly coupled is our faculty, the university they graduated from. So we are a center. And these are the faculty are hard. Well, actually, they receive a reduced teaching load so that they can conduct research exclusively in the center. So their primary goal is to research, although they are affiliated with an academic unit or department. So we have affiliate faculty who are not supported by the center, meaning their salaries and all, but they come from other places on campus, including the School of Business and the School of Mathematics, Computing, and Natural Sciences. Our staff, we have postdocs, visiting scientists, and faculty. We consider ourselves subject matter experts in secure embedded systems, hardware reverse engineering, software reverse engineering, hardware security, AI, and machine learning. From we're concerned about the algorithms and the trustworthiness of the algorithms from that perspective, and also as it pertains to secure autonomy. Our funding parts, we have funding and sponsors, and we have tons of academic collaborators. So we have funds from the National Security Agency, National Science Foundation, Sandia National Labs. So we have federal agencies, we have university applied research centers that we're affiliated with, and federally funded research and development centers. And this includes NIST and MITRE, various companies, and so forth. and universities, including Purdue, and that's growing. We just working with several faculty, collaborating on a recent collaboration on a grant proposal, and just received an invitation for another. So back to now, talk a little bit about our research. And there's a lot of talk about zero trust, and one thing I want to say about zero trust, it's not a technology. It's really a set of policies and a way of thought. But as far as where you establish your security perimeter. In a traditional setting, they establish a single perimeter all the way around the enterprise. And this, as we've seen, they use a firewall to prevent threats. But today, where most networks use software-defined networking technology, in a zero trust defense, it focuses really on resource protection. So they bring the implicit trust zone is closer or directed at the actual resource itself. So where the onus is, you don't trust anyone. Okay, that's the basic idea, and there's a lot of attestation that goes on, and you just effectively you don't trust any device or anyone. So, and it has its pros and cons, but really it's just a strategy that leverages really policy issues and to prevent data breaches. But as I stated earlier, it is not a technology or product. It also does not mean you're making the system more trusted. It's just a different way of protecting your system. Okay. It does have some challenges, and particularly today, and it's everything connected to everything in the world that we live in. These IoT devices in particular, billions and billions, and as the cities become more inundated with these devices, and they permeate every aspect of our daily lives. So there isn't a moment in the day where we don't interact with some kind of IoT device. So these they present challenges, and these devices are constrained, resource constrained in terms of computation, in terms of storage, so forth. So and they lack any kind of most of them lack any kind of they're developed without security in mind. So and then so how do you in the zero trust framework, how do you address you have time to access time resources when you have to move the implicit trust region to the actual resource. This heterogeneity presents a challenge, and as well as legacy technology. You have, for example, an old camera that's been on your system that hasn't been patched for years, but it still exists and you've forgotten about it. That device is, hackers are very skillful, they're very smart, so they exploit all these types of weaknesses. So we created our laboratory environment is an experimental framework that we developed, and beginning with the CAPNet, which is a zero trust software-defined networking environment. We were able to accomplish this because we have our own data line coming in, and we're totally independent of the university's IT infrastructure. So that gives us a lot of flexibility to do all kinds of neat things. So, so we have this testbed framework where you have these common interfaces, but where we have each of these frameworks, we have sensors where we can collect data and so forth. And each of these, it spans across different sectors, such as the home automation, smart buildings, smart grid. And we have literally hundreds of devices. And these are real world devices. And so we want to create this heterogeneity so we can then look at the attack surface and see where the threats are. In addition to that, we have sensor networks that include narrowband IoT, LoRa, Zigbee, these, and Bluetooth. We have our cloud off to the right. We have our own data center. And the connectivity we're planning to integrate a 5G testbed, and we just purchased. So with this, what this does, it presents for the student researchers, our graduate students and undergraduate students, we present them with this presents a virtually flat or horizontal attack surface. So you don't know where the attacks are going to come from. So we assessed, and our goal is to provide security and depth from the edge to the cloud. So our philosophy regarding our strategy is to treat security like an onion. So where we have, because there's no single bullet that addresses everything. So the first project I'm going to talk about is deals with various types of attacks on the, from the sensor network side. You can imagine you have trash. Well, you've seen them. You probably go in a parking lot. You have these sensors that let you know if there's a space available and so forth. And someone can wreak havoc. Of course, you can visually see if a space, but these networks are everywhere. So, and again, the objective is to evaluate and assess the vulnerabilities and to really answer the question, what types of threats do IoT devices pose to 5G? So can you effectively enact a denial of service attack on a 5G network from the edge? So those are the types of things. Given our research infrastructure, and on the one side of the spectrum, you have IoT devices that are power and computationally constrained and storage constrained. So, and they don't have any features, but can you leverage that And we're looking at really the convergence of IoT, 5G, and AI. Can you leverage that to provide enhanced security? And where you're taking advantage of on the cloud side, that you have limited power, you have high computing, and you have lots of resources and tools. So we set out to develop this. So we do a lot of, we're very hardware intensive, and I'll talk a little bit later about our Secure Embedded Systems PhD program, where we have courses that are designed to help students it's designed and developed to impart the requisite skills necessary to work in the space. So what we have to do, our infrastructure and our test beds require lots of development time. So we are leveraging on the cloud side. AWS has this nice suite of tools that you can leverage, in particular visualization tools. So we just built out several test beds and spread them across the different rooms in the building. But here we can take advantage of full end-to-end access, and we can do this remotely. And this was particularly useful during COVID. But as a matter of fact, our collaborators who want to work with us and they want to collect data, they don't have to physically be in the lab. And so this laid the groundwork for our framework. Additionally, you need some additional tools though, to perform the various types of attacks. So we're concerned with the infrastructure that I showed you earlier. We're really concerned about the types of attacks we're concerned about are asymmetric attacks, where folks use low or cheap end technology, but the end result is profound. Is striking, so it brings the system down. There's lots of tools out there for hacking, particularly in the wireless domain. There's software-defined radios. There's HackRF1. There's lots of cheap. These things are cheap. To configure them, use GNU Radio, which is available. It's open source. It's free. There's lots of packet analyzers and so forth. So with these inexpensive tools and hardware, you can perform all types of attacks such as eavesdropping, replay, jamming, and you can also alter the data. So we set out to develop a low-cost JAMA, and I'll just. So after we built the hardware to develop the framework, we wanted to see how, the next question is, how can we leverage machine learning to develop a countermeasure to jamming. So in fact, the idea is, the simple idea, this is analogous to some of the things they currently do in the wireless domain. When you have an attack, you want to effectively detect it and then maybe switch to a different channel, different encryption or whatever maneuver that you want to implement. But within the AWS AI tool suite, there we can use the anomaly detection algorithms, because what we're looking at really are features that we're considering, and we have to leverage harness the computational power of the cloud. So, but you got to choose the right features, you got to use the right algorithms, you got to worry about false positives, false negatives, and true positives, and the training. You need lots of data because, or a large data set to train, and so that you can minimize the false positives. But the algorithm of choice that we're using is the recurrent neural networks LSTM model. And so jamming countermeasure, this is how we utilize this and I call it cloud in the loop, where we actually do some pre-processing on the data. This is, of course, after the AI is trained. We get a score. We do some post-processing, and then we can basically channel hop. And this is the countermeasure that we have developed or currently developing. So we've done a proof of concept, and the initial results are very promising. Our next project deals with, the previous project dealt with one end of the spectrum at the cloud, so to speak, leveraging cloud resources to enhance security. So this one, we're working at the other end of the spectrum, right at the edge, or at the actual IoT device. And this project involved our work in the NIST lightweight crypto. So we wanted the 10 final algorithms that were selected, we want to see how resilient they are to side channel attacks. So side channel attacks, there are two types. There's EM attacks, but I'm going to dive a little deeper into, what is a side channel attack. So I'm going to skip a few slides. So the way this is a classic, it's founded on the basis of the channel, Shannon's, it's a basic communications problem. So whereby every electronic device, they naturally leak information. So these are through unintended channels, okay? And these unintended channels are side channels. So you either have intended or unintended. The intended channels where you want to leak your data or information to include your displays, card readers, etc. But your unintended channels could be the EM radiation that emanates from the device, sound, light. You can use time or power. And if you can develop, so it's a channel, and typically attacks usually require eavesdropping, whether someone logs into your network, gets into your network and sits there to monitor things, or if they're listening in, you need some kind of receiver to listen in on that channel. So, and you need access. So, and there are two types of side channel channel attacks, passive and active. The passives, they analyze things such as timing, power, electromagnetic emissions. And where the goal is you just want to observe, you want to access the device so that you can observe it while it's doing its crypto operation. So if you can do so today, you can actually use correlation analysis to brute force, and computers are very fast, lots of memory today, so you can brute force, and you can actually recreate the encryption key just by guessing using, but you have to, there's a little bit more involved in that. And then you have your active, where you want to alter the device's behavior. And for example, you have a secure boot, okay, where it sits in a loop and waits for you to enter a password or what have you. You can zap the device with a glitch, a voltage glitch, or an EM pulse. Since the non-invasive ways to use EM, so a lot of our work is done using EM. So it's where we can go through package, and you could, if you zap it at the right time, you can cause it to step out of that loop that is in while it's waiting for it, a key entry. And this is fault injection. So these are very effective techniques too. And the power analysis technique, well, all power analysis techniques rely on the switching activity of the MOSFET devices. And you have during these transitions, while the gate is transitioning, it emits power. And it's that power that you can use to correlate with actual measured data. So we said you got to build an experiment. So we have a target board that's run where you have an embedded processor that's running 128-bit counter mode. Most of the new standards, the final algorithms use AES counter mode encryption. And so we implemented on a Core Z7 board and so forth. But what's required in your setup, you need a scope, you need a probe, of course, and you need a computer to control and acquire, to gather the data so that you can do your correlation analysis, okay? And so you have an XYZ station, but before you even start that, you need to, so this is on the left, the picture on the left is the actual target. So we have on an XYZ station, and before you do anything, you need to know where you're going to probe. You don't have any prior information or knowledge about the layout where the cryptographic operations are performing on a chip. So you do an exhaustive scan to find, you put the chip in the crypto in a loop, and you run it, and you exhaustively scan the chip until you find the sweet spot to where all of the activity is. So that's where you're going to launch your EM attack, okay? And so after you do that, there are other issues that you have to worry about, such as you want to make sure that the signal noise ratio is pretty good in order to, that's a requirement to perform side channel, perform correlation analysis. And the correlation, and we developed some tools using MATLAB to do the correlation analysis. We're using the Pearson correlation which allows you to compare 2 data sets. So we collect over about 3 million data sets. So this is correlation parallel analysis is very, very, very time consuming. You know, set up, you got to collect the traces and so forth. But you can set it up and automate. Some of it can be automated. A lot of it can be automated. So what we learned from our this experiment is that Jaffe is another attack that shows that there's very little to no material in literature that shows the effectiveness of the Jaffe attack on correlation parallel analysis. So we wanted to see how well how effective it can be. And the results we got was very promising. We were able to recover the first byte using a first order. So Jaffe attack is an attack that not only can you get Jaffe attack can give you the encryption key, but in addition to that, you can also get the nonce that was used to generate that key. And so, so this shows is very promising. But again, this is at months of work. And it's going to break 128-bit encryption. We have this runs on a server where we run the software. But some of the things we want to accomplish is to reduce. One thing is to reduce the number of traces. Jaffe attack requires lots of traces, and the whole key here. The key idea here is to reduce the amount of time on the system. We also want to perform test vector leakage assessment on known keys. So now a little bit about, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about a workforce development strategy. Where we begin, it begins at the 6th to 8th grade level. And so we have stringed together some very successful programs that we have and that work. And this particular model works because, anyways, we start with the Gen Cyber program. That's a NSA program. And the program, we bring about 40 middle school girls in from the Baltimore City for about over a 2-week period over the summer, and we introduce them to basic cyber concepts. They then go on to the local high schools, they graduate, and then we have the PACE program, the Pre-Accelerated Curriculum in Engineering program called PACE, where we bring these are students who are, we bring them in the summer before their freshman matriculation. And we, over a 5-week period, we have them on campus and we introduce them to, we get a total immersion in calculus and physics. And we assess them at the end of the program, and those students, the top 10% or so of the students I offer scholarships to right off the bat. I pair them with a mentor. So our philosophy, so what drives all of this is our philosophy, which is centered around it takes a village to raise a family. So where every stakeholder who interacts with that student plays a pivotal role in their success. But where all this takes money. And so we were able to leverage a wide variety of sources, funding sources and programs such as the NIST prep program, which enables us to, for our graduate students, for example, is a professional research experience program where they actually pair, there's lots of mentoring. So they not only provide support to fund the students, but they also provide mentors. So we have the student peer mentors, as well as professional mentors who come from our partners. They're either other universities where we have we have faculty from different universities serving on the students' dissertation committee. Same goes for industry and government partners. We require that all of our PhD students, they have an industry, their sponsor mentor, and who serves on their dissertation committee. This helps to ensure student success. So we at the BS level, undergraduate level, we have a wide variety of capstone. We have different ways to engage the students to help them get experiential learning experiences, either through industrial internships, capstone projects involving industry, with industry mentors or work throughout the year with the student team on the project. A little bit about our academic programs. We have 3. Our CAE in cyber defenses, these are the courses. So we have our BS program in electrical and computer engineering, where students take these 5 or 6 courses and they receive the BS in ECE with a cybersecurity concentration. As I mentioned earlier, we have the MECE program, and then we have our PhD program in secure embedded systems, which is where students can come in which requires students who come in with a bachelor's degree to complete 60 credit hours, and students who come in with a master's degree can complete 36 hours. And this includes an en passant master's. So they pick up their master's automatically after completing 30 credit course hours. So this program is kind of unique. I'm going a little over. So although we started. So these are the courses affiliated with the program. The skills profile of the students who graduate from the program. They have background in cryptography, software, hardware, communication, understanding communication protocols, a little bit of policy, operating systems, AI, and so forth. So these are the skills. And lastly, workforce impact. Just to give you some, we're now up to about 25 students, PhD students in the Secure Embedded Systems program. 30% of women and 83% are US citizens. The model I just showed you earlier, it works. These 4, we just graduated our first cohort of students in this past May. who will be joining the likes of NSA, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, NIST, and one is a postdoc in the CAP Center for a year. All of our students are fully funded. So we have a scholarship for service, DoD scholarships, GEM scholarships, MITRE, NIST, prep scholars, and so forth. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.